Hey everybody, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here. Don't forget to subscribe. Today, let's talk about data privacy laws, because just because you have a data privacy law doesn't mean you actually have data privacy. Now, I've talked about this quite a bit, but we have some new research out here that I just read in Cyberscoop, thank you Derek B. Johnson, that quite frankly really underscores the problem that we have. I've written articles in similar in this vein years ago for Forbes on this, and it sucks that nothing has really changed. So with that, let's go to the state of California for these examples, because California, other than knowing how to party, currently requires hundreds of companies to register with the California state government and then provide California consumers with a mean to opt out of data collection or request deletion of their data. So that's the backdrop. And now we're talking about a study coming out of UC Irvine that shows that many of these registered brokers may be ignoring these requirements. And experts talking to Derek B. Johnson of Cyberscoop basically are saying that state regulators obviously need to toughen up these laws, which, yeah, makes a lot of sense. So in this study, researchers exercise their rights under the CCPA, that's the California Consumer Privacy Act, by contacting every single registered data broker and requesting details basically about the data that these companies had collected on them. Of the 543 companies contacted in the state of California, 40% failed to respond. 4 out of 10 failed to respond. That's crazy. So those that did respond often created a ton of hurdles, basically for you and I to try to get access to our data and to understand. The problem is there's no standard process for submitting these requests. Some are phone calls, others are emails. Some want you to fill out an online form, all these kinds of things. And so this UC Irvine study measured 6 types of frictions with these requests, aside from the fact these companies weren't responding 4 out of 10 times, right? So the 6 aspects they looked at were individual burden, in other words, how difficult it is for you or I, identity verification challenges, meaning we've got to ID ourselves to these companies to get our data removed, response time of these companies, aka 4 out of 10, again, are 0 on that one, response quality, obviously that's a given, the data collected, and the privacy issues related to these requests. So one of the key findings was that inconsistent identity procedures across brokers are confusing and taxing to the average consumer, thus forcing us to navigate through a patchwork of different requirements. Many brokers that collect and sell personal data require strict identity verification for consumer data requests, which help prevent unauthorized access. But that's the issue. And the authors of the study really dove into this one as a, quote, unintended privacy paradox, end quote, for us consumers, because we're basically looking to limit our exposure of personal data by engaging these brokers who then want more data on us to prove that they have our data. Right? So here we are. Now, the study, which focused solely on companies registered in California, may actually understate the problem, as other research has shown that many data brokers don't carry the disclosures across state lines. And yeah, why would they? If the neighboring Nevada, for example, doesn't have a Consumer Privacy Protection Act, it's in their worst interest to offer that to Nevadans or Arizonans or Illinoisans or any state that doesn't have this across the nation. And so by virtue of that, this is the issue. I'm a fan of the CCPA. I think the CCPA needs to have some teeth and it needs to be enforced in the same way GDPR does. But when there are loopholes to be found, loopholes will be made. There's a letter of the law and the spirit of the law, and they're looking for a gap in the letter of the law that basically says, yeah, well, we can technically talk to you, but we'll jump through a million hoops. Now, that make you jump through a million hoops. Now, that said, if they're one of the 40% that didn't respond, that's a direct violation of the law. You could submit a complaint to the Attorney General of California, and then the Attorney General can get after this, et cetera, et cetera. But there's oftentimes a backlog. This is also the problem we have with GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation coming out of the EU. Every country basically that adheres to GDPR in Europe has a data protection authority that essentially is supposed to look at these things, but some are more robust and capable than others. And so when you are looking, let's say, at reporting a data breach or having your case, let's say you're one of these data brokers like a Facebook, you have to report to a DPA, you're always going to go to one that's understaffed, undermanned, or is just going to be friendly to your position and slow pedal the whole thing for years and years and years. Ireland, I'm looking at you. So this is a potential issue. we have to have standards and practices when it comes to the uniformity of how we, the consumer, should be able to access this information. Maybe it's a form, maybe there's some minor validation that doesn't give away any more personally identifiable information than that we've given. These things need to be standardized, not to mention the fact that the governments need to have teeth on this. The only way these things are getting corrected is either through one, incredibly and insanely large fines that would make the company sit up and listen. And I'm sorry, a $5 billion fine to $1 trillion Facebook, that's Mark Zuckerberg rooting around in his couch for spare change on his Hawaiian island to pay for that fine. And they've got cost of business operating expenses just for this as they continue to violate data privacy everywhere. It's going to be no different. And so this needs to be a huge increase and push to basically give this more teeth, more fines, everything, if we're really going to start to get our data back. And again, if you're a longtime listener and follower of mine, you know that I talk about data privacy issues all the time on my YouTube channel, on my radio show, on my podcast, all this kind of stuff. And we can't give up this fight. This is basically the last bastion of what we've got in terms of privacy against surveillance, privacy against data mining, privacy against private companies and governments alike. So stick with me on this one. Please just keep aware of these things. And if you're in California and you're a consumer, you should be writing your local state assembly person, whoever he or she is. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP, wherever you are in the world, not just California, although I do love me some California. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please attempt to stay private, secure, and informed. Oh, and you can find me on YouTube, Facebook, all that fun stuff too. Take care.